Hi, guys. Thank you for joining in to another episode of Conscious Conversations. Your host, Leica Earthkeeper, and my special guest today is John Davila.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for being here, John. So what we do on this show is we pick a random topic out of the Holy Grail, and we talk about it in organic fashion. So would you mind doing me the honors?
We're trying something new and doing this outside. I hope it's not too noisy. Atlantis and Lemuria.
Ooh. That's a good topic.
I love this topic.
Oh, good.
And I've read a lot of books on it, but understand that this is one of those things that's very hard to prove or demonstrate, but things are showing up. So let's get into it. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
As I understand it, there's three. There's Mu was the first one, and then that morphed into Lemuria, and then that Lemuria split, and a group went to Atlantis. Lemuria and Mu was in the Pacific, and it was a large continent, kind of triangular shape, from Hawaii to the Philippines over to South America, and it was a race of beings who were very comfortable with nature and fishing and plants, and as I understand it, they did not eat animals.
And they had mermaids.
And I understand that they did have unicorns too. There were animals and beings back then that are obsolete now. Now the problem I have trouble with in my head is feeding the dinosaurs into this sequence, but it's not really important to me. What is important to me was that they were more psychic. The veil was thinner then, so they were in communication with extraterrestrials that would come visit, the beings that seeded them, the Pleiadians, like that, and they were very much in communication with them and very aware of them. So this was kind of like a campground. Roughing it, very.
But living in harmony.
Absolutely, much better than we are yet today. Farming, not a lot of big houses and stuff yet. Now, here's the part that confuses me: is they say, but the technology was higher then. The only way I can reconcile this concept is in the higher dimension, say the fifth dimension, and higher than the mental plane. You instantly precipitate. So like here, we think of something and think of something and think of something, and it will eventually come into being. There, which is where we're going back to, there, they say one of the problems is whatever you think shows up. And what amazes me is Star Trek and some of these shows show that on this planet, mysterious planet they landed in, where Scotty thinks of something and all of a sudden it shows up. So they portrayed this concept. So that was commonplace then. And it was there for a long time. And then the group of higher technology beings broke away because they wanted to do more advanced things.
And I think they knew what was coming. The catalytic.
They were warned.
Yeah, they knew the catalytic event that was coming, and so that's why they went to Atlantis, I think. And I would also, if you don't mind me interjecting, when you talk about higher technology, and and it's going to look different in different dimensions, just like when we think about the dinosaurs and the mermaids, could be two totally different dimensions, but happening at the same time, right?
Portals, right?
Yeah.
What we're discovering now is through quantum physics and all that. What we're told is we're going to very quickly here discover how to make a portal. So if we want to go from here to Venus, we want to go over here to Alpha Centauri, you build a portal and someone on the other side builds a portal, and the two meet, like what was portrayed with Jodie Foster in Contact. This is a very real thing. So this is what they wanted to do in Atlantis. They said the buildings looked more like Greece, and they did a lot of work with crystals. and they had a lot of an energy system where it would go into these troughs.
Grids. Oh, okay.
Grids, yes. Things that we're supposed to discover here pretty soon. So they were doing that, and the mistake they made, there was an argument in the higher echelon of the scientists that we can get more energy. We can pull more out of the sun. We can pull more out of the atmosphere of the earth. We can get more energy. What I never understood was why. What are you going to do with it? You want more powerful portals. You want further ones. I did not understand that. But there are a lot of conversations and a lot of books that talk about this event. And by tuning the crystals to a higher, more powerful frequency, some say they were bumped. Some say one exploded. An event occurred. And similar to what they're saying about the Hadron Collider. And somehow it got aimed into the Earth, and it cracked the surface of the Earth, and it went into a cataclysmic change. So Lemuria sunk, Atlantis in the Atlantic sunk, as Plato talked about it, and the other continents came up. So this is when a lot of the surface of the Earth that had fish on it and all that, shark teeth and all that kind of stuff like that, this is where it came up out of the ocean and the land dried. It was at this period. So,
and then what I've learned is that the beings then that survived the fall of Atlantis then went on to Egypt.
That's another story, right? Where they could not go along with what was happening in Atlantis, so they broke away. And then, of course, there's the South Americans broke away to the Incas and their pyramids. So a lot of the stories say this was the time when the 12 tribes spread across the planet. So again, there's lots of different stories. You have to decide what's comfortable for you. Some of us have dreams of what was going on back then, past lives. It's kind of mixed feelings for me because I get the feeling like, yeah, you were part of being the scientists and you were arguing conservatively, but they didn't listen. I lived in Bermuda for a while I was in the Navy, and the Bermuda Triangle, from being there and talking to people there, and I grew up in Orlando, being the other part of the triangle, down the Caribbean, it's a very real thing. The Navy does not fly aircraft in that triangle. One of the first questions I asked the air controllers where I worked was, they pulled the map down, they said, see this triangle? We don't fly there.
It's like a permanent portal.
Yes. In fact, I believe it's Bimini, they have diving tours to go down and see this gigantic crystal. And they say it's still being energized. And as the Earth rotates and changes its position in the solar system, things activate it, and things happen when it gets activated. So a lot of people tell me, well, gee, I never heard of that. Well, it's all out there on the internet. If you've never searched on it, you've probably never heard about it because it's not a popular topic, but it's there.
It's becoming more and more popular and common too, though. There was a show on Netflix, I want to say it was like Ancient Apocalypse or something, and this guy went through all these different catalytic events that happened in different areas of the world, and they dived down, and it was near the coast of Florida, maybe somewhat, and were finding things that were placed very perfectly under the ocean. It's almost like the pathway to Atlantis, and he was trying to prove that that was part of it. So it was really interesting. I loved it.
I came across a picture, I believe it's Arkansas, where these men were standing on a crystal that was larger than a house. And there are several right in this cave. And they said this cave used to be open to the public, but they were defacing the crystals, so they had to close it down. And I showed it to a friend of mine who is a psychic from Brazil. I hosted her to the United States. And she started screaming. She said, John, we have a cave just like that in Brazil. I've been there. So
what does that mean, defacing the crystals?
Marking on it.
Like not calligraphy. Like spray paint.
Yeah.
What is that called?
I know the word you're looking for. And I can't think of it. Graffiti, yes.
Okay. Defacing. Okay.
In fact, when I lived near Athens for a year and a half in the Navy, and I went to the Acropolis, I went to the Ports of Virgins. They're well guarded by guards. But we went to this one place called Sunyon at the end of the peninsula near Athens. And it's the one place that, as the conquerors who came and stripped it of all the statues and everything, they defaced it and they etched their name into the marble. And I watched people reading this in a book saying, oh, that's what they do here. And they took their keys out and they started etching their name into these 1,000-year-old marble columns. And I wanted to cry.
Ignorance at its best, right?
How would you buy? And there was no guard there to stop them. It was just graffiti. And it was just defaced all over the place.
That's sad.
It was the only place in Greece where I saw people do that in front of me anyway, so.
Yeah. So when we talk about Atlantis and Lemuria, it makes me think of like Anunnaki. It makes me think of the, what is that? Underground beings, inner earth beings, the ones that have survived by going underground.
Argatha, yes. That idea was portrayed, although people go, that's crazy. Well, that idea was portrayed in the movie Shangri-La, which was a fairly new movie. And it really bothered me when I first saw that movie that this group of people went there, and they're highly educated people, and they went there for a specific person to see if they could see this culture where people are happy and there's no fighting and it's a wonderful place. And they got there and they decided they didn't like it. They said it's like it was not in our nature. They started fighting and they were asked to leave. And that really bothered me. You found this place. Okay, it was in the earth. That's kind of strange.
Yeah.
And you admitted that this is wonderful. Anybody would want to live here. And then you started fighting.
Well, that ancient apocalypse or whatever on Netflix, they have found layers underground of where it showed people lived, and they even have, they were cooking down there, so there's soot from their, homemade stoves or whatever they were using to cook, probably fire, right? Like little fires and stuff, but they have these places where you could tell people slept and, all this neat things, but yeah.
This is the perfect time for me to share something I've never shared with anyone else. A few months ago, I was dwelling on this issue. How can there possibly be air and caves like this down in the earth? And an answer came back one morning that, okay, John, go back to your training in physics. If you have the planet Earth and the mass of the planet is creating gravity, and it's affecting the moon, and it's affecting the material in the planet, calculate the gravity forces at the center of the planet. And I thought, well, that's easy. Everybody says it's this big molten iron thing in the middle. Does that make any sense? At point 0 in the center of the planet, what would the gravity be? Well, according to Newtonian physics, it would be pulled apart because the mass of the planet in all dimensions would be pulling it away from itself. So there would be a giant hole in the center of the planet by the laws of Newtonian physics. This is the perfect thing that my physics teacher would bring up and make us work the math out to say, well, wait a minute, giants can't exist because of the distance squared math rule, calculate it out. Their legs would crumble under them, the bones would crumble and go, okay, giants can't exist. I did the math, okay, fine. But this is the one she brought up too.
Another dimension they could exist.
Because the rules of physics on those dimensions are totally different. That's right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I think that was good. We did good. Was there anything else that you would say
That's
about
everything
Atlantis
I ever heard on the subject.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love it. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you guys so much for joining in. I hope you enjoyed this conscious conversation, and we'll see you next time. Bye.